Twins win the battle. They beat the Royals 4-1 in game one, but did they lose the war? We got to talk about Royce Lewis's injury scare and the latest update with him. I got our Twins expert, CJ Baumgartner. He's going to help us break it all down. It's all coming up next on the Locked On Twins POSTCAST.
You are Locked On Twins POSTCAST, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up? What's up? Back in the lab, back at it. Our very first Twins POSTCAST episode of the 2024 baseball season right here on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Network. You got myself, Luke Inman, at Luke_Spinman. That's the man, CJ Baumgartner, Twins expert over at Zone Coverage Minnesota. He's on X at BombCJ30. And CJ, before we jump into all the action, quick reminder, today's episode brought to us by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. All right, man, welcome to 2024 Twins baseball. Game one of game 162 kicked off today in Kansas City. You got Pablo Lopez on the mound. He's coming off that monster 2023 campaign. And I'd say as a whole here, kind of big picture, the A topic I think coming in for this team was, can they repeat as AL Central Division champs, despite losing some key pieces this offseason? They didn't really open up the wallet. More on that a little bit later. But back to the game at hand here today. This one started out with some massive fireworks when guess who? Royce Lewis, who else? He goes bomb shot in the first at-bat of the year on an 0-2 count, no less, of course, over the left field wall. Sent some chills. You could just feel it. Chills throughout the entire state of Minnesota. You can't script it any better than that. However, 2 innings later, he turns around second base just super awkwardly after this Carlos Correa doubled down the line. His ankle kind of buckled, the knee kind of buckled. You didn't really need to be a doctor to know he was in some serious pain. He left the game with a quote-unquote lower leg injury. Obviously, it's one of the very last things you would ever want to see today as a Twins fan. So much of their season riding on him, especially watching just the health scares, too, of Byron Buxton, what he's gone through these last 5-6 years. Fans got some PTSD from that. Early word on the street, it's a quad injury. Take that with a big grain of salt, though, until we hear more from the team doctors. I'm sure we'll get an update maybe later today, probably sometime tomorrow. You just hope there's no serious damage as far as a tear goes or, God forbid, any type of ligament damage. But needless to say, the first hour of the season here, CJ, absolute roller coaster for your Minnesota Twins. Pablo Lopez, on the other hand, fantastic as usual, picking up right where he left off last year. Even after giving up that solo shot in the first inning, settled down, 7 rock-solid innings, only 4 hits, 7 Ks. Maybe most impressive for me, not a single walk on the day. Brock Stewart came in the 8th. He did his job. And then it was Griffin Jax. He closed it down. Twins kind of tacked on a couple insurance runs there to give them the 4-1 lead. That's Twins game 1 of 2024. At what cost, though? We just don't know. That remains to be seen. I'll kick it over to you, though, CJ. Kick us off here. Give us just your biggest takeaways, I guess, the biggest 8 topics from this one. Where do you even start?
Well, I think you kind of hit it on the head early when you kind of talked about, we were throwing a lot of stuff. It felt like the first 3 innings of that game were its own game in and of itself. And then the second half of the game was just a completely different vibe. But, obviously the take number 1 is Royce Lewis. Like, that's going to be the thing that everybody comes out of this game. And from that moment on, from the moment you heard Morneau on the TV go, you knew things were not going, you knew something was up. And so, if whether Royce Lewis is out a day, a week, a month, months, I don't know how long, like, we'll figure all that out in time, but that's a big deal. And we'll just kind of have to monitor that and anxiously await an answer. Another takeaway was Carlos Correa, because that Lewis injury takes away really a double he had. He had 3 hits on the day, a couple RBIs, legged out an infield single on that last one. And I think it was Dan Hayes of The Athletic put out on Twitter that his sprint speed on that one was a little bit faster than it was a year ago when he had the ankle injury. So that's a big development for this Twins team if he can just be healthy, because he can field, and he made 2 really nice backhanded plays throughout the game as well. So a healthy Carlos Correa is going to be a big advantage. And lastly, you touched on already, Pablo Lopez picking up right where he left off against the Royals and just last season. I'm really, really high on Pablo Lopez. I put it on Twitter just before this. Like, it's a great start to the Cy Young campaign. Like, I have really high hopes for Pablo Lopez, and for him to come out there and after the home run, a little bit of anxiousness, he gets past that and pitches really, really well and puts the Twins in a position to win because they only scored 2 runs in that first part of the game. So those are kind of my early takeaways from this ballgame. Obviously, number one with a bullet is Royce Lewis.
Yeah, no doubt. It goes without saying, losing Royce Lewis for really any amount of time, it's going to be a massive gut punch to this lineup. But I guess knowing what you know about when he went down for that few week stretch, remember at the end of 2023 with that hammy, if you had to guess, just top of your head, what's it going to look like for the time being now until they get him back? Like, how's Rocco maybe adjust and adapt now, both at third base defensively, but also, I guess, what changes do you maybe foresee in the lineup itself? Like, how do they soften the blow here, if at all possible?
Right. I mean, that's the last part, if at all possible. Like, he's such a big part of this team. Whenever he's in the lineup there, it's like Byron Buxton early in his career. Everybody brought up the record with Byron Buxton compared to without Byron Buxton. And it feels that way with Royce Lewis. They're just a completely different team when he's in the lineup. I mean, I guess the easy answer is you slide Kyle Farmer over to third base, and he's kind of playing every day. For now, that's kind of off the top of the head. During the game over on Twitter, it was revealed that I think Toby Gardenhire, manager of the St. Paul Saints, said that Brooks Lee's dealing with some back spasms, so he's going to be out for weeks. So Brooks Lee would have been the very first name called up. Really, really excited for him and expected him to come up and contribute. Yeah. It's going to happen. Just looks like not right away. So do you pull up an Austin Martin? He can play everywhere in the infield, a little bit of outfield, just as an extra bat. They really don't have. I mean, we talk about the depth that the Twins have in this infield with all the prospects, and they do. But then when you look at, okay, who do we need to call up and in this right situation? I really don't know who they call up. Austin Martin maybe is the one that's just off the top of the head, but it's hard because all those guys in St. Paul haven't even played a game yet. So they're still waiting. And really, that's kind of where things sit. I think Kyle Farmer just slots into that third base role, and the Twins kind of just have to go with it until they figure something out.
Yeah. Never a great time for any injury, especially a big injury like Royce Lewis. Game 1, are you kidding me? But again, going to be awfully exciting. Eventually, when we do see Brooks Lee, it would have been nice, though, had he been healthy right now. Maybe you could just, knee-jerk reaction, possibly bring him up and plug him in. But certainly Kyle Farmer, the first option off the top of your head. Speaking of injuries, too, with this Twins team, kind of already in tough shape health-wise when it comes to the bullpen, right? Like, the biggest name, of course, Johan Duran. He's on that 15-day IL. Caleb Thielbar, and 3 more, if I count them right. 5 total. On top of that, you got 2 more guys on the 60-day DL, including Josh Winder. So first of all, dude, how do you take 5 months off and then show up to the season? You're already hurt. That always confuses me. But secondly, I guess more importantly here, more seriously, how does Rocco manage that delicate situation now until bullpen, more help in that bullpen arrives? Like, just how much trouble are they in, I guess, right now until some of these guys get back?
If this was 2023, they'd be in a world of trouble.
Okay.
2024, it's a little bit different because this year, for whatever reason, whether it was because of payroll, whether it's just because that's where the front office felt like they were going to do things, they really invested a lot in that bullpen. They obviously traded for Stephen Okert. They got just added Josh DeMont, Jay Jackson, Weiss, his first name escapes, but they added a ton of veteran bullpen pieces. And this team typically likes to find bullpen help from within or kind of stash a few guys, try and find somebody. This year they got not necessarily a bunch of high leverage guys, but a bunch of veteran options. And I think that'll help out as well. Obviously, Caleb Thielbar as the lefty will be interesting. Does Cody Funderburk or does Stephen Okert kind of get that call as the main lefty in the bullpen? Johan Duran's irreplaceable. He's one of the top 5, top 3, depending on how you feel about how biased you are, top reliever in all of baseball. You really can't make up for him, but I think Griffin Jax has the stuff to at least hold down the fort in the aggregate. If it's just a month, I think Griffin Jax can do fine enough. And I wrote an article about Griffin Jax a couple weeks ago for Zone Coverage, wrote one last week just about the bullpen and how they managed those injuries. And in it, just kind of talked about they're probably going to need to go bullpen by committee and kind of that closer role. Maybe it is Griffin Jax. Maybe that's just what Rocco does. But I would probably lean more into, one day it's Griffin Jax, one day it's Brock Stewart, one day it's whoever, because that's what they did in Duran's rookie year. They didn't use Duran strictly in that closer role. They kind of moved everybody around, and I could see them doing something like that in the aggregate. But I think, like you said, there's never a good time to get injuries, but this unit, I think, can hold down the fort, and especially the starting pitching can be okay in this early part of the season. And all 5 guys, I think most Twins fans trust. I think, if you're not Chris Archer going 4 innings and needing 5 from your bullpen, I think that'll definitely help as well.
All right, plenty more deep dive on the Twins' 4-1 victory over the Royals in Game 1 of the season. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, today's episode brought to us by Game Time, because you should never have to worry when buying tickets to any big event. That's why Game Time, it's the fastest and easiest way to buy tickets to any local event like concerts, comedy shows, sporting events, and even Broadway theater. And with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. And personally for me, I love that view from the seat feature they offer, so I can get a real visual, kind of an accurate look at where my seats are going to be, so I know exactly what to expect before spending all that money. And with their all-in prices, Game Time shows you exactly how much you're spending with no hidden fees. It's time to take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app. See for yourself how easy it is. Create an account. Use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Again, just create any new account. Redeem your code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. Game Time. Terms apply. Okay, picking back up here. I don't know if you saw it. ESPN always comes out with their kind of preseason rankings, power rankings, if you will. They rank all 32 teams this week before the season started. The Twins, they were in this tier 3, okay? They ranked 12th overall. So upper half, pretty good, all things considering, especially after kind of that lackluster offseason. At the bottom, though, they had the bold predictions section. In their Twins bold prediction, they had Edward Julian hitting 30 home runs with the 400 on base percentage this year. That would make him the 3rd Twins player to ever reach those marks, with Harmon Killebrew and Bob Allison. 2 good name drops there. Give me a bold prediction you got. Just any bold prediction top of your head about this team. And then what's your quick knee-jerk reaction about Julian potentially hitting 30 bombs this year? Think he can do it?
So I'll start with the Julian one first. Obviously 30 plus home runs would be a lot. And, you look at somebody like Julian, and power doesn't necessarily jump out at you. And it depends. If you look at like the Fangraphs projections, they're not necessarily high on Julian's power. If you talk to other people, they're really high on Julian's power. The one thing is, though, is I think, the 400 on base definitely feels within range. I wouldn't be surprised to see that at all. Seeing 30 home runs would really, really surprise me. I think Julian's got more power than people give him credit for, but it just depends on kind of how what the Twins kind of want him to do. Do they want him to lean into that power? Or do they want him to lean in maybe into more of that slashing type of game? But I think overall, it's definitely a bold take. If you're going to put him in the category with Allison and Killebrew, you're definitely coming in hot with that one. And kind of my hot take for the season, I've kind of bounced around on a couple different theories, and I think I'm just going to settle on. I talked about Griffin Jax earlier. I'm really high in Griffin Jax. I think if you take out a rough stretch he had early last season in 2023, which wasn't even he got knocked around the park, it was more of he got what they call batting average on balls in play to death. He just had a bunch of bloop singles, seeing eye singles, fluky things, an error, just kind of something not go his way, and things just kind of weirdly compounded on him. I think Griffin Jax by the end of the season could be one of the top setup men in baseball. I think he has the stuff to do that. And obviously Duran's the closer, but I think that's why I think Griffin Jax can hold his own. And I think at the end of the day, I think Griffin Jax will be one of the top primary setup men in the league. I think if he has the season that he's capable of having, if he can kind of smooth out what went wrong last season and just kind of have a little more things go his way, and the numbers would reflect that a little bit more than if you just look at his overall stats from last season.
Boy, that would be absolutely huge for this pitching staff, for this, relievers group, because if they can get him to take that next step forward, man, that would be absolutely huge and a huge positive from what we saw building off of last year. Like you said, interesting kind of stats and analytics and tidbits in there that I don't think a lot of people really knew. There's been a lot made just kind of stemming off that about the Twins' decision. not to open up the wallets, not to bring back a lot of key contributors, I guess, from last year. Specifically, the hot name Sonny Gray. He's always on everyone's mind. Personally, for me, I would have loved to bring back a guy like Michael A. Taylor. I thought he filled in great for Byron Buxton all year long in center field. But anyways, point is here, we got some new names now, some new faces in the lineup. Carlos Santana, he's penciled in at first base. Manuel Margot coming over from Tampa. He's your DH, at least today he was. I guess give me one guy you're kind of pumped about, a little excited about, that's new on the team, that you think is going to have maybe a pretty big impact, a bigger impact maybe than people are thinking. Then give me one guy too, not named Sonny Gray. That's too easy. But one guy you're still maybe a little salty they didn't keep around. They didn't open up the checkbooks and say, yeah, go pay this guy and bring him back. One guy you think maybe they'll regret not bringing back this year. Who you got?
Well, I think in terms of regret not bringing back, and I'm okay that the Twins got rid of him, but now, of course, revisionist history.
Sure.
And Jorge Polanco would be nice to have on this team as an extra infielder. I get why he was gone. I think even with the payroll stuff, I think they still probably would have traded him just from value in the Twins infield depth. But yeah, that one definitely stings, I think. But if you look at who the Twins brought in, I think obviously everybody knows who Carlos Santana is. Everybody's seen Carlos Santana kill the Twins for years. The Twins have a tradition of kind of bringing in some of those twin killers. And the most notable, obviously, being like Jim Thome coming in 2010. Now, obviously, he's not going to have like a Jim Thome-esque season, but I think Carlos Santana providing stability at first base and just being a veteran bat in the middle of that lineup and somebody who has a high batting average, somebody who can, not the batting average is always the be all end all, but just somebody who can put bat on the ball and try and get some hits and set things up in the middle of the order. I think that'll be huge. So do I think Carlos Santana is going to wow everybody and put up a career year? No, but I think he kind of has the ability to be that Donovan Solano-esque from last season, where every time he came up, you just were confident that he was going to put good wood on the ball. So that'd be my take.
Yeah, and I got all his albums, too. I mean, still sitting there. Absolutely phenomenal live performer, too. That helps in the clutch, too. Obviously, we're going to be making that joke. I am anyways, all season long. All right, don't go anywhere. We got one more segment left. We're going to preview Saturday's game with Joe Ryan on the mound. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, today's episode brought to us by Amazon Fire TV, the #1 streaming platform around. Fire TV, that's your one-stop shop destination for everything sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. With Amazon Fire TV, they offer amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV stick that you can plug into your existing TV and gives you access to millions of movies and TV episodes, not to mention free and live cable TV as well. Whether it's opening weekend for the 2024 MLB season, the PGA Masters, that's right around the corner, the NFL Draft at the end of the month, or the March Madness tournament, trust me when I say you're going to want to have a Fire TV at your fingertips on every device possible. And now, with their very own specific Fire TV channels, rest assured you'll have a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, and it's all for free. And that includes all our daily content from every Locked On channel and a vast majority of pro leagues and college conferences as well. You got to check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and your Alexa devices. Fire TV channels, it's the latest and greatest way to tap into all your watching needs. So don't miss out. To learn more, visit Amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. That's Amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. All right, CJ, a new daily bit on here. Well, we'll probably have a couple different bits and segments throughout the year, but one of our staples we're going to roll with, it's going to be the Rocco Report. So I'm going to tee you up, right? You like that? All right, I'm going to tee you up. You tell us your favorite, maybe your least favorite move or decision. Maybe it's a challenge that game, whatever it may be from Rocco Baldelli on that given game. So kick us off, man. Game 1 of 162 here. What's the Rocco Report say today?
I think it's got to be the Rocco stuck on brand, right? Like everybody was waiting for the opening day lineup, and it was a lefty on the mound, and everybody was prepared to see Ed Julian on the bench to start the game, and it was. And not only that, Ryan Jeffers was at hitting second, which really, really surprised me. Not that I'm complaining about it. It's just startling to see a catcher hit second, not named Joe Mauer. So, it was very fascinating. But to have Margot platooning at that DH spot, to have Kyle Farmer in for Ed Julian, to have Willie Castro in for Matt Wallner, was very on brand for Rocco. And I'm not saying that, I'm not trying to be snarky when I say that. That's just who he is. He wants to play those matchups as much as he can. And even though it didn't necessarily work right away, because obviously Ed Julian came in the game for Lewis and Julian got a hit off the lefty. What I think really the biggest thing is guys, when they came in, Julian and Wallner and Kirilloff all came in and got their at-bats and for the most part played pretty well. So I think it's that, obviously it doesn't feel as good. It doesn't feel kind of maybe the same way to see those guys platoon and come in late in the game. But, credit to Rocco for sticking to his guns right on opening day. Sometimes you get caught up in the fanfare of it and you maybe want to just put Julian in there because, he needs to be our opening day second baseman or something like that. He stuck to his guns and it paid off and the Twins ended up winning.
And that's your Rocco report. All right. It's game one. It's March 28th here. ESPN, I don't know if you saw this too. They predict the Twins are going to win 89 games, 4.2% chance to win the World Series. No idea how they come up with that number. Anyways, I want your official 2024 season prediction so we can play it back at the end of the year. We can see how right or how wrong maybe you were. But first up, how many wins you got? How many wins do you think this Twins team is going to have? This is tough now with Royce Lewis potentially on the mend. We don't know how much time he's going to miss.
Right. It's tough because they get that opening day win. And I kind of tweeted this out as a joke after the game. I said, we may never lose again. Like that's always you win that first game of the year. You feel really great.
Hang the banner. Yeah. Pop the champagne. We're coming.
Right, exactly. And then you have the Royce Lewis news, but I think 89 wins is a respectable number. I mean, that's what the Twins won last year. And the Twins didn't have Royce Lewis for a nice chunk of the season. The Twins had great pitching, but they didn't have good hitting for the first half of it. And you didn't have guys like Buxton and Correa really producing at the clip you wanted them to. Right. So I think 89 wins isn't a bad number. I'm going to pump it up a little bit because I am still feeling good after that opening day win. I think 89 wins is kind of the bottom of what I would expect this team. If I were, an optimist, I'd say probably 94. If I was being a little more pessimist, I'd go to that 89 number. I'm going to go kind of somewhere in the middle. I think this team is a 93 win ball club. And I think that does win you the AL Central this year.
I love it. All right. Next one up, team MVP. Again, I think if we were in Vegas, Royce Lewis would be like minus 800 to win this one. Now, I don't know if you want to change your answer or not. Probably not. But team MVP, just to put it on the record, who you got?
Well, yeah, I know Royce definitely, the injury news kind of messed up that one. Yeah. But I think if we're going off the vibes of the first game, I mean, Carlos Correa's got to be up there. He looks healthy. Sure. He's ready to go. He looked locked in, good at bats. And it wasn't just that he drew a walk in his first at bat. It's that, the first couple guys up were very aggressive, which is fine. They were very aggressive. And Correa did the smart thing as a 3-hitter to know, I can't let this guy get out of the first inning too easily. Got to make him sweat a little bit. And it started a little rally off that, and it definitely helped out. So I think that's something to kind of look at for Correa. But I just think overall, I think if I'm going to go MVPs, Royce Lewis would have been a very trendy pick if he would have stayed healthy in today's game. But I'm going to go the other trendy option. I'm going to go on the hitter side of things. I got to go with Carlos Correa. I'm a fully healthy Carlos Correa means so much to this team.
I'll tell you what, I mean, if you're just trying to get the best bang for the buck, if you were in Vegas and it's like Correa, okay, yeah, Royce Lewis, heavy favorite. After watching today, how healthy he looked, how crisp he looked, like you mentioned, you can get him at a little value, maybe 2-1, 3-1, 4-1. I think I'm with you, man. I think that's where I put my money if I'm trying to maximize that $20 bet, whatever it may be. Biggest improvement from last year to now. So 2023 to 2024, who's going to take the biggest leap? I'm going to put you down for Griffin Jacks in the pitching department. You already spoke glowingly about him. Give me one in the lineup, though, with the bats offensively. Biggest improvement last year, this year.
Well, I think, Kirilloff could be a trendy pick just because obviously he didn't stay healthy last year, but when he did, he was great. I think I'm going to go a little bit off the cuff with this one. I'm going to say Christian Vasquez just because that guy has nowhere to go but up after last season. And the Twins didn't play him in any of their 7 postseason games. It kind of shows where he ranks in that. But the Twins in the regular season like to really treat it as a co-op in the catching department. So he's going to get a lot of opportunities behind the plate. And I think, obviously, the Twins still have him on the hook for 2 more years, $10 million this year and next. So, I mean, he's going to need to produce. And I think he's a veteran. He's a pro. He did not have the season he wanted, but I think now that he's got a second season in Minnesota, a little more comfortable, and gets a little bit less workload with Jeffers kind of being starting off as the primary catcher, I think Christian Vasquez will kind of surprisingly have a nice bounce back season with the Twins.
I love that. All right, last one. Who's one rookie or just younger guy you think we could see called up that might make an appearance or two by the time this season's all said and done? Sounds like you think Brooks Lee is going to be one of the first up and comers when it comes to some of these young pups the Twins have in this farm system.
Yeah, I think Austin Martin also could crack that list because
That's
especially with how the Twins like the versatility. Martin's a guy who can play a little bit of outfield, really an infielder too. And especially if the Twins are going to have guys go down early in the season, Austin Martin would be a nice fit to have. Now, obviously, can he hit at the big league level? That'll still remain to be seen. But I mean, that's definitely a guy that I think is going to come up. Remember, he was the key piece of the Jose Barrios trade with Toronto a couple of years ago now. So for him to come up and produce would be big. The expectations on him have kind of waned after struggling the last couple seasons, but I still think, in a platoon and kind of a role where they can really kind of pick and choose when they want to use him, I think there's a chance he can be effective. We just kind of need him to get up here and see it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's close out before we get out of here. Quick little preview, 60 seconds. Saturday's game 2. You got Joe Ryan on the mound. Obviously, a lot made this offseason again about losing Sonny Gray. So enter Joe Ryan now. Feels kind of primed and ready to take over that number 2 spot now. Would you agree? Like, what's your thoughts and feelings on him entering kind of a big year 3 now as one of the staples inside this rotation?
Right. And I mean, he had the opportunity to be number 2 behind Sonny Gray in 2022, but it was kind of by default, right? Like he was number 2 and he was good, but obviously number 2 on a playoff caliber rotation or team like the Twins want to be comes with a lot of production that you need to have. And I know Joe Ryan did not have the second half of the year that he wanted to have. Obviously, he had the groin injury, gave up so many home runs, and really everybody kind of soured. He never quite got back on his feet the rest of the season. But I mean, Joe Ryan was a borderline all-star. You could have made the case that Ryan should have been in the all-star game instead of Sonny Gray last year based on the first half. So I think Joe Ryan will bounce back. I know everybody's been kind of quiet on him. Some people think Bailey Ober has leaped him, and I don't, 100% disagree with that, but I still like to lean towards Joe Ryan. I think he will have a nice bounce back season, and not that you can forget the contribution that Sonny Gray did last year because when he was the Cy Young runner-up, but I think Joe Ryan will have a nice bounce back season from the first and second half compared to just how his first half was.
Absolutely love it. Well done, my man. That was a lot of fun. I can already tell we're going to have a lot of fun breaking down all these games throughout the entire 2024 season. Twins win the season opener in Kansas City, 4-1. Pablo Lopez, first dub of the year. We've got the day off tomorrow. Then game 2 goes down Saturday afternoon with, again, Joe Ryan on the mound. First pitch for that one, another 3:10 p.m. Central Standard Time start. As always, huge shout out to everyone that joined us in the stream. Can't wait to do this with you guys all season long. 161 more to go. Rest assured, we'll be back each and every game, same time, same place, right here to break it all down. Quick reminder as well, go check out all of CJ's work on Twitter at BombCJ30 and all the work he's doing up over there on zonecoverage.com. Any quick little plug, any quick little shout out, anything you just posted or wrote up in the last week or two relating to the Twins we can go check out?
Yeah, I had something to come out yesterday talking about Pablo Lopez and how I think that he really kind of had to overcome some hurdles last season, necessarily in the minds of fans. He obviously had to prove he was worthy of being traded for Luis Arraez. Not an easy thing to do. He proved that. He proved he could be a playoff caliber starter. He still kind of has to win over some people talking about, can he fill the void of Sonny Gray or how to, losing him will sting. But I think overall, basically, it's kind of my pitch to say Pablo Lopez with another good season can cement himself as a Twins kind of icon this year. And I talked a lot about that and some things he can work on for this year. One of them is keeping the ball in the yard. And obviously you get the one mistake today was his one home run. So all that stuff is in there. You can go read it at Zone Coverage as well.
Can't wait to check that out. I know the entire crew over at Zone Coverage always ripping it up, so can't wait to check out all your work over there, not just today, but throughout this entire 2024 season. That's going to do it for us today. He's CJ Baumgartner. I'm Luke Inman on Twitter at Luke_Spinman. Until next time, signing out.